Welcome back to today's episode of Words of the Wise. Today I have Chief Holguin from Kennedale PD in Texas, has over 30 years experience in law enforcement. Really looking forward to our conversation. Welcome to the show, Chief Holguin. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Of course, take us back 30 years. What did your career look like?
30 years. Well, first and foremost, I want to say I never intended on becoming a police officer. It was something that came to me one day, literally. It just was something like an epiphany. I had graduated college. I was already working full time in the entertainment business, the amusement park business specifically, and didn't really feel very fulfilled doing what I was doing. And so it just dawned on me to let's look at law enforcement. So went on a ride out with one of the local agencies here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area and fell in love with it. I was just amazed that, these individuals were out there in the middle of the night doing what they're doing, protecting homes, taking care of property, being visible and vigilant. And I wanted to be a part of that. So I applied to a very large police agency here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area and got hired. So I started late. I was 26 years old when I got in this business. Had my degree and felt I had found my calling. And little did I know that it was going to be an incredible journey. The first day of the academy, and you hear this often, you hear this from a lot of police chiefs as well, but they'll typically tell you in a police academy, welcome to the front row seat to the best show on earth. That's a pretty common phrase, and I'm not sure it was always the best show on earth, but it was definitely a show. And for somebody that was 26 years old, and I thought I'd kind of been around a little bit, it was a pretty amazing transformation to go from civilian to police officer. I stayed at that agency for a couple of years, and then I moved to another very large agency, and where I worked for 17 years and had an opportunity to do all kinds of incredible things, um, including crime prevention and community outreach. I ran a specialized team of officers that we went out and worked on problem hotspots where we had high crime activity, high crime areas. But it was a kind of a different perspective. We didn't just go out there and do enforcement. We also did a lot of community engagement. So actually, one of my officers on my team was tasked with just getting information to residents and working within the community to build partnerships with the police department. So it wasn't just purely enforcement, which is the aspect that I really enjoyed about that assignment. Had an opportunity to go to the traffic unit, and I think that's of the areas that I've worked. I was the supervisor over accident investigations, and I'm sure in your conversations with other chiefs and law enforcement officials, anyone that's ever worked in accident investigations, that's a tough job. And I literally was on call practically 24/7, 365. My co-sergeant was out of town. He was deployed in the military. So I took calls on day shift and I took calls at night shift. And that was probably one of the most challenging positions I ever had because, when I got called out as a scene supervisor, it was really pretty bad. There was some type of traumatic incident, loss of life, really terrible things that you would typically see in a crash scene. And I didn't realize till later how much that affected me, and it did. There was an effect down the road. But after that assignment, I got a chance to go into personnel recruiting. So I did that for a couple of years. And then I decided to promote. And I was promoted to lieutenant and became a patrol commander. And there's a whole different, perspective of that, different assignments within patrol. And then I left that agency as a division commander over special investigations. So I ran all the different types of like computer fraud unit, crimes against children, domestic and sex crimes. Those kind of operations were under my command. And then I decided to take the leap into chief world and was hired by the largest university system in the state of Texas as a first an assistant chief, then the acting chief, and worked in that area for about 3 years. And then I had enough. It was a lot of stress, a lot of work, and again, I think there were some things I needed to also work out in my head to make sure that I was going to continue to be a productive person within public safety and so forth. So I decided to go ahead and retire and pursue some other interests. I actually became a certified Texas school teacher and taught criminal justice at the high school level for a few years. I was at the same time I continued to remain in law enforcement. I was a reserve officer with the city of Kennedale, so they treated me very well. I got an opportunity to go out and patrol, which is the most fun part to me, was getting out back in the police car again because it's been years since I had actually done that, and got an opportunity to help them with a lot of projects and different types of special tasks that they needed assistance with. With my background, I was able to help them complete these items. So, it was one of those where I got an opportunity to still work in patrol, but I got to keep honing my administrative skills and doing stuff for the department in the city as needed. Became a security director for a school district, and then one day, my captain at the time, who I reported to as a reserve officer, he said, "Hey, I'm going to be the next police chief, and I'd like you to come back full time into law enforcement, become a captain, and take my place." And we're a small agency, so it's chief and captain here at the Kendall Police Department. And so I said, well, first thing I need to talk to my family and make sure they support this because we've been down this path. It's a lot of work. You're always on call, especially at a small agency.
Yeah.
And so my family agreed. We did have again, it sounds kind of corny, but we had the sit down meeting as a family, and we discussed this. And I told him, I said, look, I really need your support because I know what's going to happen. I'm going to work a lot, and I'm not going to be here to cut the yard. I'm not going to be here to help with chores. And some days I'm going to come home and I'll probably be in a really bad mood. I'm going to try not to. I try not to bring things to the house, but they all agreed. They said, yeah, I think that's great. They thought it was a great opportunity for me to get back into law enforcement, and I did. And then 6 months later, actually less than 6 months later, my boss decides he wants to be the city manager. And I'm like, okay, well, at this point in my life, I'm pursuing a doctorate degree. I've got some other interests going. So, being a police chief, already checked the box. I've already done that. That wasn't something I was looking to do anytime in the near future. I was quite content being the captain and then to continue trying to finish my coursework. But he decided he wanted to be the city manager, and of course I support him 110%. And so I eventually became the police chief, and I've been here since January of 22. I've been the
Wow.
chief here at Kennedale. So that's where I'm at this point. Still haven't finished that doctorate degree. I'm in a class right now, as a matter of fact, started yesterday. But got a few classes left before I get to dissertation, and then hopefully one day get my personal goal of having a doctorate degree completed. So
Wow.
uh, I am married, got a wonderful, supportive wife, and she was in law enforcement for 10 years.
Okay.
So she understands the business. And that really has helped me tremendously throughout my career, especially through the low times when you need somebody that can understand, the police mentality when you're dealing with issues. And I've also got two sons that one just graduated from college, and the other one's about to start college. So,
Wow.
I'm very blessed. And three dogs. Love our dogs. They're our
Can't
four-legged
forget the fur
kittens.
babies. Yeah.
Oh yeah, love those guys. Love those guys.
What an incredible career. I feel like there's so many questions that I would love to ask you, and I could talk to you for hours and hours and hours about different things. But I do want to stay on the context of wellness because I know that that's why we're here today. And there were a few things that you said to me that I was hoping that we could dive into a little bit. And you had mentioned how much you love this career, but you also said that there are some things that get to you over time, and there are some things that are challenging with shift work and being on call and working 24/7. And I was hoping that maybe you could share maybe some personal experiences that you've had with the challenges of this career on your wellness.
Well, I think first, starting off, again, I was 26, and went to college, lived in different places throughout the state, and kind of thought I was a little bit more mature than the average person that starts at 21, 22 years of age. And I was actually very surprised at some of the things that I was exposed to literally on day one. My second call of my career was someone that had died of, we believe, natural causes in a very uncomfortable type of situation. a small efficiency apartment on a really really hot summer day, and it was just something that I never in my mind imagined seeing. Especially I'm not going to go into details about the position of where he was and what he looked like, but it wasn't very comfortable at all. Um, and I can't imagine what someone who hasn't had at least a few more years of life experience would how they perceive that event. Because here I was, a little bit older guy, and it affected me.
Yeah.
And the first thing I did was go home, went to my apartment and cleaned it impeccably, because if one of the things that I noticed is that it was not a very well kept apartment where this individual was, and that's the last impression that people will know of this individual, unfortunately. And so that's one of the first signs I think I noticed that how this job was going to affect me, is that I wanted to try to get my affairs in order as much as I can, or I could. But you part of it too was, as you progressed, as I progressed through my career, depending on the assignments, that's what sometimes we don't realize. I didn't realize. I'm not going to say people in general, but I didn't realize how things affected me. And uh, one day, many years later, we're driving around a city where I used to work, and just casually speaking, I was talking about intersections and places where I've worked, fatality accidents as an accident investigation sergeant, and uh, and my oldest son said, "Dad, do you have PTSD?"
Mhm.
And I'm like, "What do you mean?" He goes, "Every time we drive down these freeways or we go down these streets, you always recall something."
Mm.
And that was very powerful to me. And we talked about it later, and I realized that there's a lot of stuff embedded in there that maybe that we don't realize as police officers sometimes that can affect us. So that's how this job has impacted me. I think it's been an incredible experience. I think I've done a lot of good in this field, but there is obviously things that are always going to be there, and if we're not conscious of it, or we're not seeking help, we're not trying to get out there and at least talk to someone, your spouse, someone you trust. I think that's one of the things that can definitely affect us. And from a leadership perspective, obviously, I'm more in tune with officer mental health because I've seen how it affects me, and I've had that again when it's pointed out to you by one of your children, the conversations you're having. Then that's something that's important, and if it can happen to me, I think it can happen to anyone.
Yeah. How do you think that you can prepare the young men and women who are coming into this career to be exposed to those types of things? Are there strategies that you think are successful, or do you think that you just learn through experiencing it firsthand?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know that there could have been really anything to prepare me. Again, I was an older guy when I got into this business. I don't know that there was anything that could have prepared me for what I saw. But definitely what has changed tremendously, I started in 1994. What's changed tremendously is the amount of support that's available now. And I think that's what's really important, is that, look, I think it's important for us to tell our younger generation of officers, look, you're going to see things that are going to be incredibly uncomfortable and heartbreaking. Again, I can tell you story after story. The Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex is a big place, over 9 million people here, so we have a lot of things going on. So um, I think that's something that we need to preface the beginning of their career with, is you're going to see some of the worst of humanity, but the help is there. And one of the things that we offer here in Texas is that Texas Blue Chip program, and I think you've seen this before.
Yeah.
Uh, and I think this is a really great program we have. We launched this in 24. We have some great leadership within the state that has promoted this and advocated for it through the Texas Law Enforcement Peer Network. And this is one of those things that we can give to an officer, that they can take this QR code and get that help and talk to somebody anonymously, and get that that support a lot quicker than maybe having to wait for, the human resources office to open, or try to contact someone through a peer support network of some sort, or a EAP outside of your traditional means. So I think that's something that we need to prepare our people for, is that, look, you're going to face these incidences, and it may not affect you immediately, but it's going to affect you. And it's important to try to bring that in the conversation. How do you stay balanced? Eventually I learned that after I left that other agency, and I came over to the second agency I worked for. One of the things I really focused on, because of the things I had seen and witnessed before, was trying to balance that life and work mentality. And I made it a it was a drive for me to hang around with people that were not police officers,
Yeah.
at least, on occasion, so that I had regular conversations, not about police work, and kind of get out of that world. And I think that's also something that's lost on new people. When they come into this business, it's about the camaraderie, it's about we're all together, the thin blue line, and it's great. But you need a release, and you need to talk to people that aren't in law enforcement, so that you kind of see what's going on from other people's perspective in the world, not just in cop world. And I think that's another avenue that we need to continue to reinforce in basic police academies, and also when we get new hires into our police agencies, is to really focus on, you're committed to this job, but this job can take a toll on you. So you need to, balance your life, seek those additional opportunities for help that are out there, and make sure that you're talking to somebody. Don't keep this in. Those are the basic strategies I think we can try to promote. But in terms of how do we get them to really do any of this,
Yeah.
it's going to be up to their experience.
Yeah. I mean, that's always the question, right? It's like, how can you then get people to understand the importance for themselves? Because I'll tell you what, I mean, I have experience in my own life. When I was in my early 20s, you couldn't tell me anything, and sometimes I feel like you have to experience it yourself in order to get there, because proactive wellness and measures are always going to be harder. It's not until you're faced with that challenge that oftentimes you're like, oh, okay, now I know the importance of it, and because I experienced it myself. And so I do think that that is kind of the burning question that a lot of leaders are asking is, okay, well, we can talk about this, we can provide support, but how do we get them to recognize the importance of doing this proactively rather than waiting until there's a time of crisis or a challenge to start seeking that support and those resources?
Yeah, and that's one of the things I've tried to do here. We're a small department, so people know each other intimately, more so than a large agency. And I know that there's instances where people do need help.
Yeah.
Uh, they might not come to you directly, but you can tell. I mean, you see people that are, walking down the hall, and they don't look like their usual jovial self or whatever. So one of the things that I've done also, and again, it's not necessarily something that they're doing. It's something that I'm doing to try to help them also get to that point, to what you just said, is realize that their experiences will affect them, and they need to continue to seek help. But one of the things that I do here is, on an annual basis, I bring licensed psychiatrists in. We have a course. It's an 8-hour course, and we try to have an intimate setting. So it's small groups, 2 days of two small groups, and I don't attend those. I let it's for the officers, and they have an opportunity to talk, kind of in a group therapy type of scenario with the counselors, and it's been remarkable. I mean, the feedback has been tremendous, and because we're small, we can do that. Now, this would be a huge challenge in the larger agencies, but I think that's one of the advantages of working in a small agency, is you can do this kind of extra stuff for your personnel. And the counselors are fantastic. They're local. I actually met them through the local Rotary Club. and there's phenomenal people willing to come in and put these courses on for us, and we do this on an annual basis. So I think that's some of the stuff that we can definitely do. In addition to, the city has an EAP program and that kind of thing, and of course, like I said, the Texas Blue Chip program is phenomenal. So, but it does take them, understanding that, hey, I need to realize when I do have these issues, and get the help that's available to us. And we're trying to. I know you've heard this over and over again, talking to multiple chiefs throughout the nation, but there's still a stigma there in law enforcement. We're trying so hard to get rid of this stigma that we don't need mental help sometimes. And that's one of the reasons I wanted to come on this show with you, is because I have a story as well, and I think it's important that if people see that we're all vulnerable, whether you're wearing stars or not. I think it's important for people to start looking for that help and trying to get that assistance where they need it.
Yeah. And I think that we severely underestimate the power of communication and talking and sharing our stories. And for me, and I don't know if you can relate to this or if anyone who's listening can relate to this, but for the longest time, vulnerability scared me. I did not want to put myself out there. I did not want people to know the messy parts of me or my challenges. I wanted to give the impression of perfection. And I existed that way my entire life. I was like, as long as I posture up and I keep going and I put that smile on and I say I'm good, then no one's going to be able to see through and see what was actually going on beneath the surface. And that is how I wanted it. I wanted to keep people at that distance and I wanted them to perceive me in a certain way. And I think that it was through a lot of hard work, and growth and maturity that I realized that these things that we've gone through and our experiences are our greatest assets in some way. It's our opportunity to help people and to show people that there is growth and there is, freedom from these things. We don't have to shove them down and we don't have to pretend like we're perfect when we're not. And that's okay. And I think that I've had to learn the hard way in many ways, in my life, but now I think it's my biggest opportunity to share those things so that people understand that they're not the only ones that are feeling these things. And I think that we do that to ourselves so often. We isolate and we tell ourselves that no one else understands and no one else knows what we're going through. And that's just not true. There's so many people out there who have gone through maybe not the exact same thing, but similar things. And there's so much power in communication and talking about it. And you've shared a lot of the things that you've done, talking to your wife, talking to people outside of law enforcement, therapy, the blue chip program. There's so many ways that you can have those outlets of communication. But and I want your opinion on this, I also have never met a leader. I have never met anyone in an executive leadership position who has not gone through it. And I think that it's so powerful for people like you to come on and share it because you have had a long and successful career. You are highly respected and you're viewed as someone who's smart and strong and capable. And when we have individuals like you who are sharing those things, I think that's a way to break stigma. I think that's the way to, get people to feel like they're in a safe environment to seek the resources that are being provided. Do you think that that's important? Do you think that, it's almost like, I don't want to say a duty, but, it's a powerful platform for executives to share their story to start breaking that stigma?
Absolutely. I think the days of the stoic executive that was kind of sitting in the ivory tower office, those should be gone, and hopefully they are across the board. Again, I've had the opportunity to watch your show and see the interviews with several chiefs, and I think we're all saying the same thing.
Yeah.
It's really important for us to model the way, and you know a lot of us have been through the fire. We've dealt with a lot of heartbreak in this profession. And, it's unfortunate when you still have people that are holding on to that old stoic type of executive leadership that, I've got to present the most perfect embodiment of what a chief is supposed to represent. And I think that's also dangerous because we have, especially more so now, we have a younger generation that likes to ask questions and they like to ask why this and why that. And one of those questions is, how do I deal with the things that I'm seeing out here? And if I'm not willing to share my 30 plus years of experience in law enforcement with the new hire, the person we just brought on board, just finished field training, that just saw their very first deceased person in unnatural circumstances, then I'm cheating them.
Mm.
I'm not giving them that opportunity to learn from my experience and help them cope with that situation. When I first started in 94 in this business, we didn't talk about feelings. And I'm sure you've heard that multiple times. We didn't talk about feelings. I don't know if we had an EAP program at the agency I started with. We probably did, but I wasn't made aware of it in the academy. If I did, it probably was in the middle of everything else. I think my first academy was like 36 weeks or something like that. I mean, it was pretty incredibly long. But there just wasn't any emphasis on that, and I think there was still this ideology back then that people with rank have to act a certain way and can't show any vulnerability. And I think these later generations of police officers, the more you talk to them, the more you get to know them, they want to get to know you. They want to know your experiences. They want to pick your brain. I have officers that'll come to my office because I pretty much always try to have my office door open all the time if they want to wander in and just talk to me. And it's amazing some of the questions I get. They're just curious as to just all kinds of different things, whether it's even law enforcement related or just family related. One of my officers here recently, we were talking about what schools to look at for. He's got a toddler, and so he's already planning for the future and that kind of thing. And so those are the kind of relationships I think we have to have with our officers, and that includes sharing. Our experiences, so that hopefully they understand that it's okay. It's okay to hurt. It's okay to be vulnerable. We all go through that, and just because I have stars on my collar doesn't make me perfect in one way, shape, or form at all. And I've been through the fire multiple times in multiple situations that are completely heartbreaking. And I want them to understand that we can get through this. And my goal as a chief, and I think most chiefs today should have this goal, and I think a lot of people on your show have certainly displayed this, is we're going to do this together. I'm here to support you. I'm here to try to find every possible opportunity that there is to get you the help that you need. Again, I don't need to know. I just want to make sure that you have it available to you if you want. And again, I'm not. You talk about the programs that are available. What I like is we have like that Texas Blue Chip. It's completely anonymous,
Yeah.
so I don't need to know. But I just want you to get the help. And as an executive, that's where we need to be today, because this job is not getting any easier. And I think with the proliferation of social media, and again, I'm sure that's come up multiple times, it's a tough job. It becomes tougher and tougher in terms of being in the public eye. It was already difficult in 94 when we didn't have an internet, much less today, when people see your mistakes firsthand immediately, and it goes viral. And so there's a lot of stress and pressure on young police officers, I think, to try to figure it out. And if we're not supportive as a command staff or an executive team, then I think we're doing them a huge disservice, because that pressure one day uh, it'll come to bear, and it will lead to unfortunate and terrible circumstances if we're not trying to get ahead of it.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that I hear all the time is culture is so important, right? Building that foundation of culture. And to hear you say that people are coming in and being like, Chief, what schools are good for my kids? And coming in and asking you life questions, that means that there's a culture of communication and they feel comfortable coming to you. And you're someone who is approachable for these things. And so I think that's a testament to the work that you've done within the organization, that people are willing to come to you and talk to you about things. And one of the things that you said to me that I was hoping that maybe you can dive into a little bit, because I agree. I think that there's a lot of external pressure, um, you know, community perception, like you said, social media, officers that are maybe afraid to make certain decisions because they don't want to be the person that is now viral for XYZ. You had said to me that you want officers to find a place where they're capable and confident to be able to do their job. What does that mean to you? And what are some things that maybe you are teaching organizationally from a wellness perspective, but also, maybe from a performance perspective so that people do feel capable and confident and prepared to do their jobs?
Well, I'm a huge advocate, and as most chiefs are, of training. And because we're a small agency, I do have the advantage of being able to spend a lot of training resources on a smaller group of people. So last year, we averaged 130 hours of training per officer.
Wow.
And, the state mandate is not close to that on a biannual basis in Texas. It's not even close to that. So that's part of what we're doing. But part of the training methodology and the ideology behind the training that much is that they're building camaraderie on a regular and consistent basis when they're going through these. Like we do a lot of alert training, for instance, and we'll do a lot of different types of scenario based training. And so they're working and learning from each other, but it's also building a level of camaraderie where there's more trust.
Mhm.
At least that's the hope and the intent. And so training is multifaceted, right? It's not just to learn how to do your job better and become more efficient and proficient. It's also team building.
Yeah.
And so I think when you have that type of ideology, then you have more support, and it's really great to see the level of support for each other that the officers have, because again, we're a small agency, but they're pretty tight knit group, and they again, when there's a celebration to be had, someone's having a baby, for instance, they go all out. They'll find a venue, they'll put this stuff together, and they won't even ask me for any help for it. Which sometimes, hey, I would have contributed something for that. But that's what's great is there's a level of trust and team building that's occurring because of the training that we're making them do the training, but the effects of it are really very beneficial to the culture. And they're becoming a more and more tight knit group every time they go through this training. And our goal is to do more training every year. So I don't know what our max is yet, but that's the idea. And this also includes that wellness training that I talked about earlier with the licensed psychiatrists and psychologists. That's in addition to that training that we do. Um, I think that's some of the best ways we can prepare our people is to give them an opportunity to feel like they belong. And in terms of performance, you know, there's always policy and procedure and all the things that we're supposed to do and how we're supposed to do it. And everyone, including myself, we're all held accountable, of course. But you having the experience of making mistakes myself throughout my career, because I've not been perfect in any way, shape, or form, is understanding that as a chief, I can't expect perfection all the time. These guys are going to make mistakes, and as long as they're recoverable and we're learning from those mistakes and we're supportive, and even to the point where maybe we do need to send you some additional training to help you overcome some of these mistakes you might be making in the field. That's where we're going with that. I don't look at our policies and procedures from a punitive standpoint. I think they're supposed to be guidelines,
Yeah.
and I think as a result of that, we try to make sure that we're trying to empower the officers as much as possible to make good, well-informed decisions and understand that this is what the expectations are, but also be supportive when we can, when mistakes are made.
Yeah. I had a conversation one time where a chief said that law enforcement was the only profession where perfection is an expectation, where you're expected by the community to be absolutely perfect. And I think that we have to realize that if humans are involved, there's never going to be perfection. But to your point, you know, can you learn from it? Can you grow from it? Can you continue to train and strive to be better? And to me, everything that you're saying is culture, everything, and I saw this thing one time that said if you guys are going to call each other family, or like law enforcement family, and then you kind of have to act that way, and you have to have those things in place to where you are supporting each other and each other's wellness, each other's growth, performance, supporting each other's lives. You mentioned that a couple times. You're like, yeah, like that you have people in your organization that have young kids or about to have a baby and they're trying to get together and support family wellness. And so everything that you said to me sounds like culture. And so I love that. I wanted to ask you a couple more things. I think we have time. You had mentioned earlier, you said that you talked to your family when you were coming into this position, saying, hey, like, I'm going to be working a lot. I'm going to try not to bring things home, but some things might make it home. What are your strategies for officers to have that balance between work and life and to not bring all of work home?
Yeah, another good question. So, I learned the hard way. Again, when I first started in the career, I was exceptionally gung ho and wanted to go out there and defeat evil and do all the things we're expected to do. Uh, but through my own life experiences, and I'll tell you, this is another story that actually kind of gets to that point. I'm a young rookie officer, and again, I'm working for a very large agency, so I'm seeing a lot of really horrible things on a regular and consistent basis. And the area where I worked was very, very busy. We could never keep up with calls. There's just pages of calls on the computer, the little tiny computer we had back in 1994. We could never catch up. So I was constantly running all night and seeing all kinds of crazy things. Uh, but I would make it a point. I actually, as a rookie, I got lucky and I had Sundays off. So I had an opportunity I'd go home every Sunday and have dinner with my parents and my sister. And sometimes we'd have other relatives over and stuff. And I would find myself, well, I didn't realize it. I was talking about work a lot. And it got to a point that my father one time pulled me aside after a few Sundays, hearing some of this stuff going on. He said, "Son, you need to stop talking at dinner about work because you're scaring your mother."
Mm,
And I didn't realize the things that I was saying, to me were becoming normal. And again, this gets back to what I was saying with, how do we help, people on the front end avoid this? And I think that's what one of the first catalysts for the idea of work-life balance. I think we need to encourage our young officers to take time off, take vacations, and I know there's shortages in police staffing across the board, and sometimes it's not always easy, but we got to get our people off the clock, and we got to give them time to go do things and encourage them to do other activities that are beneficial for them. So obviously, I'm a huge advocate of education. So I encourage my officers. We have a really great program here in the city of Kennedale. We have tuition reimbursement. So you can go back to school. Many of my officers are working on their undergraduate degrees. So one's contemplating going for a master's degree, which I'm really pushing her in that direction. So it's just I think it's important that we continue to try to find ways to keep these officers engaged with the world outside of law enforcement. And if we're not doing that, I think eventually it's a disservice to them. But it can really affect us pretty significantly in the long run. And
yeah.
then, you have a law enforcement career of 20, 30 years, and, you regret all the things that you passed on um, that you shouldn't have, and that could have brought more joy to your life and brought some more substance to your life. Again, I've seen it, as many chiefs have seen it. Officers that self-medicate, that go out and They try to forget things, going to the club or the bar, and it never ends well typically.
Yeah.
Divorce rates in law enforcement are still high. Uh, Unfortunately, in Texas, we had a significant number of suicides in the last few years of police officers. So again, I think this job can certainly take a toll on us, and it does take a toll on us. The evidence is there, but as a veteran law enforcement officer, not just a police chief, I mean, I would implore our younger generation, especially, like, you're coming into this business. First of all, understand what you're coming into. But secondly, you have to take care of yourself. You have to take time away. You have to stay connected with your family. You have to remember what's important in life. And I think it's easy for us to forget that because it's exciting and it's an incredible job. We do a lot of great work out there every single day across the United States. There's great officers doing some fantastic things. I love this profession. It's a noble profession, but it's a profession it'll take a lot if you're not careful.
I think you made such a great point that I maybe hadn't put two and two together before. If you only work, all you're going to be able to talk about is work.
Right.
And I have done that too. I've had moments where I'm working 7 days a week, 15-hour days, and it's work, 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 work. And then people ask me how things are going, and all I can talk about is work because that's the only reality that you have, right? And so, like you said, having those moments of having other interests, having healthy outlets, I think is really important because if you don't have healthy outlets, then the mind wants to take the path of least resistance always. So it's always going to look for the easy way out. You have to train it to look for other things. And so if you're not really focused and prioritizing those healthy outlets, like you said, school, family stuff, maybe you work out or you play pickleball or whatever, those are those healthy outlets that are going to give you a break. They're going to give you another perspective. They're going to give you something else to talk about. And if you don't do that, then your mind's going to want to escape, numb, avoid. And so I think to your point, I thought about that. I was like, man, if all you do is work, that is all you have to talk about because that's your full reality. So how can you break that up with other pieces of healthy outlets that you can then enjoy, talk about, and just have that mental freedom from some of the other things because some of the other things are tough. So I appreciate that. You've already given so much amazing advice, but I wanted to ask you one final question, then I'll give you the floor if we miss anything. But what words of wisdom would you give to someone who's earlier in their career? Maybe something that you wish you would have learned or something that has helped you along the way.
We're kind of getting back to that point of
Yeah.
don't let the job consume you. It's great, and especially when you start off, yeah, you're seeing some crazy things and some things you really didn't really intend on seeing, and some traumatic things. But generally speaking, it's law enforcement is such a tremendous job. It's such a tremendous career. It can be very fulfilling, but you have to keep that life balance. And I'll reiterate that again. There's really no way to not emphasize that enough because I really wish that I would have done that. I don't regret my career at all. I think I've been able to really do a lot of really cool stuff, and I'm very happy with the things that we've been able to, or I've been able to accomplish, and with the teams that I've worked with. But I didn't take good care of myself physically. I wasn't I didn't go to the gym enough, and you hear that over and over again. But that it's not just about working out to be strong; it's working out to be healthy,
Yeah.
and it relieves a lot of stress. I also didn't reconnect with some of my college friends or friends I had in the private sector before I went into law enforcement until years later, and I kind of felt like I missed out on some things. Just hanging around regular guys, regular people that the biggest strain they have at work is the copier didn't work that day or something, and it's great to hear those conversations because that's life. That's the average life. A police officer's life is not it's not normal. What we do and what we see, and what we contend with is not normal. People don't call us to the party when things are going great. They call us to the party when things are going bad. And you've heard that before. So it's really cool to hear people's issues and their concerns and just how they view life. It's almost like it's refreshing in some cases. And I really wish I would have done that sooner. I would have not gotten so involved in just overwhelmingly getting involved into the police profession, and leaving an outlet. Another thing that I didn't do, that I would really advise officers is to keep those outside interests, whether it's, again, family. Family's huge. If you're blessed with a large family or a family, cherish them, cherish those moments, take those vacations with them, try to, ask for time off from work. Don't miss out. Police work will be there when you get back. There's plenty of police work in the world to do. Get out there and enjoy your time with your family, because at the end, after you're done with your career and you're done with everything that you've been able to accomplish and all the accolades and certificates and citations and all the awards you get in law enforcement, at the very end, what do we have left? We have family, if we're lucky. And those personal relationships are incredibly important. I read an article once, and I don't know if how legitimate this was, but it was a hospice worker that talked about, no one's in their final stages of life talking about, man, I wish I could go to another staff meeting. They're talking about, I should have spent more time with my son or my daughter or my kids or my family, my wife. There's so many other regrets in life, I think, that happen. This is a great career and it's a noble profession, as I said earlier, but at the same time, it's not our entire life. It shouldn't be our entire life. We have to be connected to the people that are important in our life. And I think as young officers, it's really easy to forget because it's so exciting, and it's super cool putting on that new uniform and getting out there and chasing down the bad guys and having cool stories to tell and everything. I remember those days. I do, just like they were yesterday, actually, and those are cool. But what I wish I would have done is stay connected to, my church, my people, my family, friends outside of law enforcement. Those are the things I had to catch up on later. And thankfully I came to my senses and it did work itself out. But yeah, there for a while, it was consuming me to be a police officer. And it's really easy to do. And I really wish I could impart that on every new officer: stay balanced, keep that balance with you and find those outside interests. Again, go back to school, do something, go to a woodworking class. I don't care what it is, or just do something that's not police related, and that way it keeps your mind, puts your mind in a different place and gives you an opportunity to again continue to grow as a person. And you bring those things back to police work anyway. Anything you learn outside, you bring back, and you're a better problem solver. You're maybe a better communicator with the community. Maybe you can work a task more efficiently and effectively because you learned how to do something outside of work. And that's why education for me is really important. I'm not going back to school because I want a PhD. I go back to school because it is one of my releases. I love to research and learn and do all kinds of stuff. And a lot of the information I bring back to work
Yeah.
when I see what's going on out there in the rest of the world, as opposed to just focusing on the day to day of my job.
Thank you. I really enjoyed this conversation. I appreciate your time so much. And if there's anything that we missed, I'll let you have any closing remarks, but that's all I have for you. And I just really want to thank you for your time.
Well, thank you for having me. This has been a pleasure, and just sharing my thoughts and having the opportunity to hopefully give people some advice out there. And I think it's imperative as a police chief, but for police chiefs everywhere, to really be in tune with what's happening today as much as we possibly can. It's much harder in larger agencies. I get that. Those guys. I mean, they go from meeting to meeting all day long.
Yeah.
But I think it's really important to try to stay connected as much as we possibly can, and do the very best we can, take care of our people, and ensure that we're giving them examples also that hey, we're not perfect. Even those of us that are wearing stars, we're definitely not perfect. And don't be afraid to reach out for help.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Thank you for your time. And I'm sure we'll keep in touch. We're friends now, so
All right.
thank
Looking
you.
forward to it.
Yeah, thank you for everyone for listening, and we will see you again next time.